Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Levincia Wonders going up against the Melemele Rumbles, as both these sides are on the cusp of those top 5 positions, with the Levincia Wonders currently sitting in 6th place, the Rumbles, the reigning champions, in 5th, and they need to stay in top 5 if they want to hope to repeat as champions of Season A2 in the PokeType League TCG, and they were able to get a clean sweep over the Wonders last season, and they want that again here today. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the Lightning decks? Will it be the Fighting decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And having flipped heads, it is this rapid spin kick deck of the Melemele Rumbles, with that Riolu going into the active spot. The Magnemite of the fully charged deck from the Levincia Wonders moved into its active spot, as well as they both only had one basic Pokemon, but they've both got the Professor's Research, and the Rumbles pull the Phanpy on that first draw too, but they play the Professor's Research, getting an X-Speed, and they get the Lucario, who can boost the damage of those fighting type attacks by an extra 20, and they've got that weakness advantage over the Levincia Wonders as they do end their turn. The Wonders are going to pull the Pokeball that they are going to play to ensure they get a basic Pokemon that will be the Voltorb, and they've already got an Electrode in hand. They play the Professor's Research, we can see the Magnezone, they want the Magneton, they get the X-Speed, and they get their Magneton as well. Both these decks actually getting the cards they need in these early turns as they get an energy onto the Magnemite. This Ram only does 10 damage, but fortunately it only requires 1 energy. Just to be safe though, they put the Giant Cape onto the Magnemite, and this is a very good play because of that Lucario in hand for the Rumbles. There's the Ram, 10 damage onto the Riolu, a little bit of chip damage as it comes back over to the Rumbles. They get their second Phanpy, and they've got both Donphans already in hand. They do require 3 energy, but they do 60 damage on the first turn, but every turn after that it happens consecutively, they do 120 damage, and they do play the X-Speed to retreat the Riolu with 0 energy costs. They move the Phanpy into the active spot, they put the Lucario down, and with that fighting coach ability that we did touch on, that rollout from Phanpy becomes a 40 damage move, and with the weakness of Magnemite, it becomes a 60 damage move. Fortunately for the Wonders, they had put that Giant Cape onto the Magnemite. They do pull their second X-Speed, and they can start to get these evolutions online. They're looking at the Electrode, and they do hesitate for a moment. They do definitely move that Magneton on though. With that Lightning Ball, it does do 50 damage, but it's only got 40 health remaining. And they are going to retreat the Magneton though. They want to keep it safe from being eliminated. They do move that Voltorb into the active spot. Now the Voltorb can only do 10 damage, whereas the Magnezone, if they get it online soon, can do 110, but they are going on the offensive with the Voltorb. They still require 2 more energy for that Magnezone, and this will buy the Rumbles a little bit of time. But Phanpy is not strong enough to take out that Voltorb either, as they pull the Hitmontop. They do move that onto that last benched position. They get a first Donphan down onto the bench as well. They can choose to get it onto the active Donphan, the active Phanpy, and that they do. We have 2 Donphans rolling onto this field with that rolling spin. It does require 3 energy for the 60 damage. This will buy the Wonders a little bit of time. They do pull the Iono, and they get the Electrode out with its tumbling attack. It can do upwards of 80 damage based on a coin flip, but it is guaranteed to get 50 damage onto this Donphan. The Magnezone is online as well, and this tumbling attack, they need to flip the heads to get the extra 30, and they do. This will do 80 damage to this active Donphan, bringing it down to only 30 health remaining. Now the Rumbles do pull a Pokeball. They are able to get another basic Pokemon out of their deck, which is going to be that second Riolu. They've got the potion as well, so they can restore some health of this Donphan back up to 50. But it will get its third energy, and that rolling spin, we said it does 60, but thanks to that Lucario's coaching, it's going to do 80 damage plus the weakness, which means it will wipe this Electrode off the board, getting the first point for the Melemele Rumbles in this best of 3 series, which they are hoping to clean sweep for the second season in a row over the Wonders, who move their Magnezone into the active spot, because regardless of what happens in these first 2 games, that third game still gets played because it counts toward our leaderboard. Now the Rotom has been pulled for the Wonders. They move it onto the bench, and they're thinking about what to do here. They do get an energy onto the Magnezone, and they're thinking of playing an X-Speed to try and buy them a bit of time. This will bring the retreat cost of Magnezone down to only 1, but that puts it back at only having 1 energy here. They do move the Rotom into the active spot, and the Wonders know exactly what is happening here. They are backed into a corner here because This Donphan is building all the momentum. Last turn, this rolling spin did 80 damage plus the extra 20 for the weakness, doing 100. Now it's doing 140 plus the weakness. It just did 160 damage to this Rotom to wipe it off the table. The Rumbles have just taken their second point, and there is not much this fully charged deck of the Wonders can do, because it is the rapid spin kick deck that's really fully charged here. Now the Wonders have just pulled an Electrode and they're going to play the Iono. They're hoping they can get one random card that might be able to help them. There's not much to choose from, and they get the Professor's Research, which they cannot use because they can only use one supporter card per turn. They end their turn. The Rumbles, they don't even need to worry about moving an energy from that energy zone. They're just going to wipe this Magnezone off the board in pure domination. This is the type of performance we saw from the Melemele Rumbles in Season A1, and this is what they need to get back to the top. But we are going to have a quick table reset as we go into Game 2, and the Wonders need to figure this out fast. The Wonders need to figure this out fast. The similar names, feels like, but it is the Rumbles with their Grand Underground deck moving that Gligar into the active spot. The Wonders have the Pikachu in hand plus the Electrike. They are going with the Pikachu, the Electrike, and the Pawmo, both going on, the Pawmi, sorry, going onto the bench. They've got the Raichu in hand, but it is that Gligar all by itself. However, we can see that Skull Fossil where they want that Rampardos online and do the Rumbles. And speaking of Skull Fossils, they also pulled the second one. They think of putting it down, but before they do, they play the Professor's Research so they can get an additional 2 cards. They get another Professor's Research and that Exoskeleton Regirock as well. Now they've also already got the Cranidos in hand, which is fantastic. It only requires 1 energy, as does the Rampardos, and it can capitalize on that weakness of the Lightning types. Now the Rumbles are trying to buy themselves a bit of time by also putting that Rocky Helmet onto the Gligar. They want to make that Pikachu hesitant to go on the offensive. As they play the Pokeball they just pulled, they get the second Pawmi, and they've got another Pokeball in hand, so they can get an additional basic Pokemon out, and it is that second Pikachu. There is a second Electrike somewhere in that deck, as they're looking at that Raichu in hand with that Spark. It only requires 2 energy, but they are thinking about how to go about this with their active Pikachu. And it can do 10 damage to the Gligar, but it will take 20 in return from that Rocky Helmet, so they opt against that, and this leaves the Rumbles to pull their Pokemon Center Lady. They play the Professor's Research though. They get the Gliscor, they've got the Rampardos in hand as well. That Cranidos is online. The Gliscor only requires 1 energy as well, and they are going to bring that online for that Acrobatics. It does do 20, but they get 2 coin flips, and for each heads, they do an additional 20. They get a Tails, they get 2 Tails. This is fantastic for the Wonders because of that weakness of Pikachu. If one of them was a heads, the Pikachu would have been wiped off the table and the Rumbles would have taken the first point here, as there is that second Electrike. The Raichu is online as well. And with this Spark, it can do 40 damage to the Gliscor, but it also does that additional damage. They choose to go with the 20, going onto that Cranidos, trying to chip away at that health. They don't want to have to contend with a Rampardos raging about, but there is that recoil damage onto the Raichu. As the Rumbles do pull their second Gliscor and they play the Pokemon Center Lady, they restore 30 health for this Gliscor as well. This is not good for the Wonders because here comes Rampardos, 130 damage. It can one-hit KO most Pokemon in this season, as they go for the coin flip with the Acrobatics once again, and they get 2 Tails once again, but still they will take out the Raichu because it only has 30 health remaining. They were just trying to maximize their damage, which counts heavily towards the leaderboard, and the Rumbles can be absolute powerhouses as the Wonders move the Electrike into the active spot and they pull the Iono. This could actually be good for them if they want to try and get a Manectric in hand. And they do play the Iono. Both teams have to shuffle their hands into their decks, replacing the same amount of cards. That's 3 for the Wonders, and they get a Manectric. They get 2 Pawmos as well. It's a Cranidos and a Skull Fossil for the Rumbles. The Pawmo is online. The Manectric with that Flash does 40 damage, but it can also prevent the opposing team from doing damage to the Manectric. There's the 40 damage. When Gliscor goes on the offensive, it will have to flip a coin if it wants to do damage before it even gets to try and do the additional damage with the Acrobatics. And it does have a 2 energy retreat cost, so they're just going for it, and they do flip a Tails, and this will prevent Gliscor from going on the offensive. This is fantastic for the Wonders. This will buy them a bit of time. They do pull a Rocky Helmet as well, and they do immediately move that to the Manectric. That coin flip could be crucial. This flash is massive as they're able to set up the Pawmo with its first energy. They get another flash onto the Gliscor. Now, if Gliscor goes on the offensive and is successful and hits that Rocky Helmet, it will be eliminated here, but they need to do a coin flip to determine whether or not that will even happen. If it's a Tails, they will do nothing, and then they still get the coin flip for the Acrobatics. They play the Pokeball. They've just taken a Hitmonchan out of their deck, which they immediately move onto the bench. 1 energy to do 30 damage, which would be 50 to these lightning types. But here goes, no, they're not going for the Acrobatics. They do retreat the Gliscor. They're moving the Rampardos into the active spot. Now with this Head Smash, it does 130 damage, but it does 150 thanks to that weakness. It does take that 20 recoil, and it will take an additional 50 because if that Head Smash eliminates an opposing Pokemon, they do take the recoil damage. That does bring Rampardos down to only 60 health. That is not enough for this Pawmo and its punch to take it off the board, but the Wonders pull the Pawmo. This is exactly what they needed. They believed in the heart of the cards. They moved that Pawmo into the active spot, and with this electric punch, they can take the Rampardos down and get a point. They are still in this against all odds. Now, if it actually wasn't for that weakness of Pawmo as well, it can outlast a single hit from Rampardos. As we see, it is the Hitmonlee being moved into the active spot. They need to be careful though. This counter attack of Pawmo is very dangerous because it's similar to a Rocky Helmet. If it takes damage, it will return 20 damage to the opposing Pokemon. But very clever of the Rumbles, they are putting that giant cape onto the Hitmonlee, boosting its health by 20, taking it up to 100. It can outlast one of these electric punches from Pawmo, doing 50 damage to the Pawmo, who does do that counter attack. There is bringing that Hitmonlee down to 80 health, and the Wonders have just pulled their own giant cape that they can get onto the Pawmo. If that Pawmo was wearing a Rocky Helmet, it would do 40 recoil damage to opposing Pokemon. But here it is, that giant cape taking its health up to 110. They do get a third energy onto it because there are no benched Pokemon for this Volt Tackle deck right now. And there's that 70 damage onto the Hitmonlee, as it is the Gligar being pulled for the Rumbles, and the second Cranidos coming online. They want that second Rampardos though, and it does get its first energy here. Regirock having 1 energy. We've seen it have a great season so far, but they are going high offense here against the Wonders. That counter attack does take Hitmonlee off the board. It is a 1-point game here in game 2 as the Wonders are looking to take it to a game 3. The Rumbles are looking to continue their clean sweep over the Wonders. But here is the Cranidos being moved into the active spot for the Rumbles, who, as the Wonders, with their Volt Tackle deck, they do pull that second Electrike once again that was reshuffled in thanks to the Volt Tackle. They're not going to move it onto the... Oh, they are going to move it onto the bench. It didn't seem like they were 4th energy onto the Pawmo, and this Electric Punch bringing Cranidos down to 20 health. If Cranidos goes on the offensive, we are going to have our first ever tie because it will be able to take out Pawmo, but it will take 20 from that counter attack. The Rumbles need to weigh up these options. Are they willing to give up this game 2? Are they that confident that they can take game 3? And they are going for the tie. With that weakness, it takes down Pawmo thanks to the headbutt, but the counter attack takes down Cranidos, and for the first time in PokeType League TCG history, we have a tie game. Now, if the Wonders win game 3, it will be a tie series for the first time, as neither team takes the win in game 2. We go to our final game, game 3, and the Rumbles will once again be going first, this time with their Cobble Breakers deck up against the Levincia Wonders Fuego Ironworks deck. Now, in the rare instance, as this has never happened before, if we do end up with a tie game, instead of the traditional 3 points for a win and 0 points for a loss, it is 1 point to each side for the draw. As these sides, the Wonders sitting in 6th, the Rumbles sitting in 5th. But here we go. It is the Pachirisu in the active spot for the Wonders with the Shinx on the bench, the Hitmonchan in the active spot for the Rumbles with the Monotype on the bench, and they just pulled the Mars. Now they've got the Rocky Helmet immediately onto the Hitmonchan, and they've got those 2 Marchokes in hand as well. They are going to send it over to the Wonders, who have a Professor's Research. They just pulled the Electivire, and they've got the Pachirisu and Rocky Helmet. The Professor's Research though gets the Luxray, gets the Luxio. Now they've got that Shinx already on the bench as well. And Pachirisu with this Plasma does do 10 damage to the Hitmonchan, but it generates an energy that will get moved to that Shinx as well. They can choose any benched Pokemon to attach it to, and at the moment it is the only benched Pokemon, but there is that 20 recoil damage from the Rocky Helmet. Now the Rumbles have just pulled the Medicham. That Monotype has now evolved, and with this Kick Shot it can do 80 damage, but it is a coin flip to determine it. But they need to be able to retreat the Hitmonchan, which is a 1 energy retreat cost, so they do move an energy onto the Hitmonchan, and the Wonders pull their second Luxray. Keeping in mind that if Hitmonchan wants to go on the offensive with its Magnum Punch that does 90, it requires 3 energy. And the Wonders moving their second Pachirisu onto the bench as they're thinking about how they want to approach this. And they're continuing with the Plasma Shots onto the Hitmonchan, another 10 damage. It will be another 20 recoil, so Hitmonchan's still doing more damage to Pachirisu at the moment. But that is a third energy onto that Luxio, and Luxray only requires 3 energy for that Volt Bolt. Now what it can do is 120 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon. As the Rumbles get an energy onto the Medicham, they are going to play a Pokemon Communication. They shift one of these Machoke into the bench, into their deck to pull out a Machop in return, which they can put onto the bench. But as we're saying, the Wonders, that Luxray will have to discard all of its energy if it wants to go for the Volt Bolt. But first, it is the Medicham being moved into the active spot. They have retreated the Hitmonchan, going with this Kick Shot, and they flip the tails. It is going to do nothing to the Pachirisu. The Wonders have pulled a Pokeball as well. We can see that Electivire, they want an Electabuzz to go with it. Instead they get a Shinx, so they could get that second Luxio. But they're thinking of how they want to approach this. And they are in a very good position right now with that Luxray being able to be set up. They're going to retreat the Pachirisu. They did just move an energy onto the second Pachirisu as well. The Luxray is online. The Volt Bolt can do 120 damage. None of these Cobble Breakers deck are safe, and it is the Medicham that is going to be wiped off the board. That is the first point for the Wonders. They are going for this tie game. They want this. They don't want to lose another game to the Rumbles. They want to get their first ever win to tie this series. The Hitmonchan has moved back into the active spot. The Luxray has discarded all of its energy, and the second Medicham is in hand for the Rumbles, as now the Machoke is online. It has 100 health, but it requires 2 energy to go for this pummel. There's the second Electivire as well for the Levincia Wonders, still yet to get an Electabuzz, as they are going to retreat the Luxray. 0 retreat cost frees them up to move that second Pachirisu, who's still at full strength, into the active spot. They get an energy onto the Luxray. They use the Plasma to get another 10 energy onto the Hitmonchan and get another energy onto the Luxray as well. There is that 20 recoil damage onto the Pachirisu. The second Machoke once again getting pulled for the Rumbles. It was not shuffled too far down, as that pummel is set up for the Machoke, getting its second energy, and the Volkner has been pulled. That can generate energy from the discard zone, so it pulls them from the discard zone and would move them onto a Luxray as well. And that's what happens to these energy when Luxray goes for this Volt Bolt that it's going to use to take that Machoke out of this match that the Rumbles were trying to set up, and those energies are once again discarded. This is not good for the Rumbles. This is amazing for the Wonders. They are setting up everything. They've just pulled a Team Rocket Grunt. Not very useful right now, so they're going to play the Mars. This will cause the Wonders to have to put all 6 cards back into their deck, and they draw 1, which is the Electivire, because that is how many points they need to win the game. This will buy the Rumbles a bit of time, as they need the Wonders to not be able to generate energy. They do pull an Electivire. So this is great for the Rumbles, buying them the time that they need. Luxray getting its first energy. And it is now the Machamp being pulled for the Rumbles. Machamp could have actually outlasted a hit from Luxray with 150 health, but too little too late, as it comes back over to the Fuego Ironworks deck, and they get the Volkner. They can get the 2 energy from the discard pile onto the Luxray, and it is free to go for its third Volt Bolt. They don't need to worry about the energy zone. They're just worried about tying up this series and taking Hitmonchan down. incredible performance to bring it back by this Fuego Ironworks deck. They got the tie thanks to the confidence of the Rumbles, but unfortunately it was not enough. Now both these sides do stay where they are on the leaderboard. They get the point for the draw, but with that said, the Wonders next round are going up against the Levincia Constrictors. The Rumbles, they'll be going up against the Pastoria Hydros in a Champions game rematch. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.